It is now generally accepted that sociology and sociological theories have not paid adequate attention to the fact that societies are divided or stratified into not only on the basis of caste, class, religion and so on, but also on the basis of what we call the gender. The dictionary meaning of gender is classification of objects roughly corresponding to the two sexes as well as the properties of these two sexes. While discussing the differences between the sexes, we generally focus on biological and reproductive functions. But differences in gender relate to various other attributes which may be socially and culturally determined. In other words, sex is biological, whereas gender is sociological, namely the social meaning we attribute to it. Over here, we shall be looking mainly at some of these attributes and how they come into existence. Further, we shall be looking at how the concepts of woman and man become important not only in terms of the difference between them, but also as concepts which help us better understand society and social relationships. Social expectations that women manage childcare contribute to the gender, pay gap and other limitations in professional life for women. Traditionally, women are expected to stay at home and take care of the children, while men earn wages to financially support their families. Because women are expected to handle children, they choose jobs with greater flexibility and lower pay. The gender pay gap has been attributed to differences in personal and workplace characteristics between women and men, education, hours worked, occupation, etc., as well as direct and indirect discrimination in the labor market like gender stereotypes, customer and employer bias, etc. Healthcare for children and flexible scheduling that can help women with the child care for which they are still overwhelmingly responsible may take priority over pay, that is gender pay gap. The gender pay gap is the gap in wages between women and men, even when women perform the same tasks as men, has been attributed to differences in personal and workplace characteristics between women and men, education, hours of worked, occupation, etc., as well as direct and indirect discrimination in the labor market like gender stereotypes, customer and employer bias, etc. Healthcare for children and flexible scheduling that can help women with the child care for which they are still overwhelmingly responsible may take priority over pay. In the United States, there is an observable gender pay gap such that women are compensated at lower rates for equal work as men. The gender pay gap is measured as the ratio of female to male median yearly earnings among full-time, year-round workers. The female to male earnings ratio was 0.77 in the year 2009, meaning that in 2009, female FTYR workers earned 77% as much as male FTYR workers. Women's median yearly earnings relative to man's rose rapidly from 1980 to the year 1990, from 60.2% to 71.6%, and less rapidly from the year 1990 to 2000, from 71.6% to 73.7%, and from the year 2000 to 2009, from 73.7% to 77.0%. There have been many positive moves towards equalizing the position of men and women in Europe through legislation and policy in all spheres of public life. However, change appears much slower with regard to family life. Sex role stereotyping is particularly entrenched in the private domain. It is the time for individuals and institutions to embrace and support diversity in family life for the benefit of all. This discrepancy is frequently attributed to women's desire to have a family life. Inequalities in professional success are sometimes attributed to women taking maternity leave after having children. Further, women are accused of intentionally seeking out jobs with fewer hours and lower pay in order to be more flexible for their children. Economists who have investigated the gender pay gap have also noted that women are more likely to choose jobs based on factors other than pay. The gender pay gap has also been attributed to differences in personal and workplace characteristics between women and men, like education, hours worked, occupation, etc., as well as direct and indirect discrimination in the labor market, like gender stereotypes, customer and employer bias, etc. Health care for children and a flexible schedule that enables women to take care of the children for which they are still overwhelmingly responsible may take priority over pay. Moreover, many women are disinclined to take jobs that require travel or are hazardous. On an average, women take more time off and work fewer hours, often due to the unequal distribution of childcare and domestic labor. Family obligations tend to pull down on women's earnings as they proceed through the life course and have more children. The earnings gap tends to widen considerably when men and women are in their early to mid-30s, or when people start to have children, and reaches its widest point when men and women are in their 50s. The demands of women having to manage work and family lives have become an obsession of American popular culture. Gender issues in India. Crimes against women in India is at an all-time rise. From the beginning and through the year, we only heard promises and attended seminars for improving the plight of women, but we don't see any work done. There are many organizations and trusts that are working on these issues. But is that enough? How many people are working for those organizations? How many women are reacting against violence? Alcoholism. If we go deep down into the reason for this kind of a crime, alcoholism comes foremost. Alcoholism makes life miserable not just for the person drunk, but also for his family, which includes women at its forefront. Empowerment. Many people think empowerment is the biggest problem. There are many organizations like CRY who are giving education to children. It's really important to give education to everybody, since education is one of the key to empowerment. Yes, low literacy among women is the biggest problem, but there are many other things to keep in mind to solve this issue. Women education in India is improving, but at a very slow rate. Mindset. Empowerment alone does not seem to have solved the problem. What is needed is a change in the mindset of men, which will go a long way in redressing the balance in the gender equation. Sex determination tests through techniques such as ultrasonography and amniocentesis are banned in India. But female child is still commonly killed, and in some regions where a preference for son runs deep. As a result, the government says around 10 million girls have been killed by their parents, either before or immediately after birth over the past 20 years. This is really not a small problem, but in the years to come will be the biggest social issue. For this, we have to change the mindset of men as well as their family members. Because in many cases, grandparents support their son to kill the granddaughter. The culture is such that whenever a girl gets married to a man, however bad he may be, her inclination is to stay with him till the end. Many victimized wives see no alternative but to stay in their husbands' households. The only option they believe is available to them in a society that stigmatizes divorce. Now, women can only change this mindset. We have to teach women how to react in such situations. We as women have to change this attitude of society towards divorced women. According to MAVA, Men Against Violence and Abuse, and National Crime Records Bureau, in every 29 minutes, one rape happens. In every 15 minutes, molestation. Every 53 minutes, sexual harassment. Every 16 minutes, a murder. Every 9 minutes, cruelty act. And every 77 minutes, a dowry death. Many organizations like this hold seminars for women and their families. They teach women how to react, how to fight. They have one-day workshops on self-defense for women. We should take part in all these workshops. We should not be dependent on anyone, even for our physical protection. Yes, we should think of our family, but if anybody does crime against us, we must react. Today, we will react. After watching us, many other women will react. Join a cause that supports women and help make India proud. Nowadays, girls have higher positions in office. They also have 33% reservation. But is it proving beneficial? If we can't get respect, then it's not of any use. Reality shows. Have you ever thought why talented girls are eliminated at the beginning in reality talent hunts? Reason is many girls give vote to guys. Why can't people see talent in girls? Female infanticide and female feticide. Female feticide is the act of aborting a baby because it is of a female gender. Sex-selective abortion is a big problem in India. The number of abortions by medical professionals have increased so much that today it has become an industry even though it is punishable by law. Female infanticide is the act of killing a female girl, either newborn or within the first few years of life. It could be actively murdering through suffocation, poisoning, etc. Such acts can also be passive, when no interest is taken with regards to feeding or towards her general health, in effect, total neglect. According to the Fundación Vicente Ferrer, the sex ratio in the 0 to 6 age group in India is 1000 males per 914 females in 2011. The ratio is significantly higher in certain states such as Punjab and Haryana, which is 126.1 and 122.0 as of 2001. Why? The traditions in India are deeply rooted. The sons are who inherit and perpetuate the surname. And all that it entails, they will take care of their parents when old age takes hold. The sons take responsibility of funeral arrangements as this task is not deemed appropriate for females. The daughters marry and move in with their husbands. As a result, they are not productive. In addition, despite the dowry forbidding such behaviors since 1961, it is a general practice within Indian society and widely accepted. The poor families who have got female children have to pay between 10,000 rupees to 20,000 rupees approximately for the dowry. Therefore, it means 3 years' salary approximately. Marriages. The majority of marriages in India are arranged. This practice is legal in India. However, it is forbidden to marry until the age of 21 years old for men and 18 years old for women. In spite of this fact, many marriages are between couples below the age guidelines and they are generally widely celebrated by the families involved. According to UNICEF, 56% of cases involving early marriage happen in rural India and 29% in the urban area. The population's beliefs consider it to be beneficial for the daughter because she will get used to the arrangement easier and adapt quicker into her husband's family. After the wedding, the wife lives with her husband's family. From that moment, the only wish is having a boy. Conceiving a male child would gain the recognition of the family and hailed as an achievement for the wife. If she gave birth to a girl, in some cases, the husband's family can blame her, resulting in mistreatment which can lead to inflicting physical and psychological damage. They can instruct her to commit suicide because of the strong beliefs which surround female birth. Education. Since the new law in 2010, the education is free for every child between the age of 6 to 14 years old. However, it's not compulsory. This means the children have the right to education but not the obligation to go. A lot of girls do not go to the school because their parents would rather send their sons who will be the future for them. The girls have to help at home during housework. trafficking, and slavery. Thousands of girls are kidnapped every year in India for trafficking, slavery, prostitution, and so on. Paradoxically, there are not enough girls or women in India for getting married. In some states, so as a result of that, a new practice takes place in India: kidnapping of women or girls from other states or countries like Bangladesh or Nepal. The families pay a fortune for a woman or a girl who will belong to them forever. The threat received from the family who has purchased the child is even worse than normally. The kidnapped woman does not have any rights. Other women are convinced working in other state or in the capital would result in a better lifestyle. However, in reality, the circumstances they find themselves in are worse and they are often left feeling cheated. They are forced to work from dusk until dawn without a salary, and in addition, they live in indescribable conditions. As a result, some of them are dedicated to prostitution. India ranks lower on gender equality. India ranks 132 out of 187 countries on the Gender Inequality Index, lower than Pakistan, which is 123, according to the United Nations Development Programme's Human Development Report of 2013. The report said all countries in South Asia, with the exception of Afghanistan, were a better place for women than India, with Sri Lanka at 75, topping them all. Nepal ranked 102nd position and Bangladesh on the 111th position. The annual UN report assesses how well countries worldwide are performing on human development indicators like health, education, and income. The Gender Inequality Index measures the loss in a country's progress and human development because of gender inequality in three sectors, namely reproductive health, women empowerment, and labor market participation. The report notes that gender inequality is especially tragic not only because it excludes women from basic social opportunities, but also because it gravely imperils the life prospects of future generations. India ranks low partly because of its skewed sex ratio, with only 914 females every 1,000 males, according to Indian government data. Indian families often prefer boys to girls, and female feticide is tragically common. The UNDP study says that only 29% of Indian women above the age of 15 in 2011 were a part of the country's labor force, compared to 80.7% men. In the parliament, only 10.9% of lawmakers are women, while in Pakistan, 21.1% are women. In the United States, which ranks 42nd on the list, 57.5% women and 70.1% men are a part of the labor force. China fared even better, landing 35th. Media, women, and the changing scenario. Listening to radio programs and watching the television and reading the newspaper reports, you may feel that issues relating to women are now receiving more attention. Whether it is a horrifying description of a dowry death or of atrocities against a scheduled caste or a tribal woman, of more girls going to school each year, there seems to exist more information of what we can call gender issues. At the same time, the media through advertisements, television serials, and other programs continue to portray women as either weak, defenseless creatures or as bewitching maidens out to win the hearts of unsuspecting young men. Anything ranging from a motorcycle to a soap is advertised with an appealing woman model, inviting us to buy the particular item. Women as projected on television. There has been gender bias in the television programs. Over here, we shall look briefly at the findings of a report on how stereotypes are formed and perpetuated in Indian television programs. The study conducted by Prabha Krishnan and Anita Dige in 1990 was based on intensive viewing of all Delhi Doordarshan programs on alternate dates of the month of July 1986. Thus, every program became a part of the sample, which was classified in 7 broad areas. We shall look briefly at some of the important findings of their study. Men appeared as newsmaker in 77.4% of the cases, while women were in that role in only 6.5% cases, and for the rest, a categorical analysis was not possible. The authors pointed out that when reporting on politicians, women appeared in the political news as wives, mothers, and daughters of well-known leaders. They appeared as victims of calamities and as members of audiences. In areas where curfew was imposed, women were shown as shoppers when curfew was relaxed. With the emphasis on development programs, the official media did give some coverage to women working in agriculture, sericulture, tea gardens, and so on. Biased representation of women in the TV serials and cinema. In their analysis of serials and cinema, the authors observed that men characters were almost double that of women characters. In terms of occupation, women appeared mainly as housewives. If employed, they were invariably school teachers, office workers, and flight attendants. By and large, women are depicted as dependent, submissive, and sacrificing, whereas men are self-confident, dominant, ambitious, and even ruthless. Krishnan and Dighe conclude that women are underrepresented in general. Marriage and parenthood are considered more important to women than to men, and female-dominated occupations are played up. The authors also point out that television programs have distorted the women's movement and its role. Changing scenario. We need to remember that since the 1980s, there has been some resistance to the stereotypes formed of women. Secondly, certain laws as well as legal judgments have worked towards greater gender equality. Textbook reforms, agitations against the portrayal of women in the media, and moves to involve more women in the political process at various levels and so on are all part of a new phase of awareness in the Indian society. This has led to resurgence of women's movement in various parts of the country in the recent years. The consciousness has not only made all of us more sensitive to the situation of half the country's population, but has also generated a lot of data, studies, and reports on relevant issues. It has led to the development of women's studies as an area of academic research and teaching, which acts as an essential input in correcting our biases in knowledge. It can also be hoped that this new knowledge will help to correct stereotyping of women and their role, and therefore carry positive impact. The emerging trends and government's response. One should not get the impression that women's movement in India is largely urban-based. We find that it has also involved middle-class educated women. There are several active grassroots organizations of poor, rural, and urban working-class women, tribal, self-employed women, who are fighting against all forms of oppression, injustice, and exploitation. Various national and regional political parties and trade unions have also set up women's wings. As a response to women's movement that began in the late 1970s, the government set up women's cells within a few ministries like Rural Development, Labour, and Human Resource Development. In government's program for rural poor, 30% women beneficiaries are to be selected for training and income generation programs. In the late 1980s, the government prepared a national perspective plan for women, which is between 1988 to 2080, which has made several recommendations relating to legal, economic, social, and political status of women. The government also appointed a National Commission of Self-Employed Women and women in the informal sector to look into the specific problems of unorganized women labor, who constitute 87% of women workers but do not get any protection from labor laws like equal wages, maternity benefits, childcare facilities, and better working conditions. The shape of the family is changing across the world, and it is no longer appropriate or constructive to view family as one-dimensional. Families are diverse, and shared experience, acceptance of difference, and respect and are key values in any progressive society. Gender is a social construct. It is used to explain and justify men's dominance over women across all dimensions of society. Women are no more inclined or able to cook, clean, and care than men are to protect, provide, and punish. Evidence suggests negligible differences between the sexes outside of physiological ones, which including pregnancy and breastfeeding would on an average amount to approximately 8% of a woman's life. That was a gross in 2005. As many people said, cause of problem is woman, and woman is the one who solves the problems as well. So if you will not react for crimes against you, you will cause problems for yourself and for other women in the society. So please go ahead, be part of some organizations and change the mindset of people and help build our nation. You are power of this nation, so make our nation powerful and try to solve the biggest problems.